My mother managed to build her own empire, traveling all over South America with no money and no place of her own for 12 years alongside my father. After leaving her home at 16 with her newlywed husband, they decided to travel nomadically, spreading positivity wherever the wind took them. My mom's whole life has consisted of trial and error, but also strength and perseverance. My mother, Maria Regina Arteaga de Duran, has been my best friend since the day I was born. I do everything I do to make her proud, to not put her journey to waste. As a woman, I have no choice but to admire the trials and tribulations she went through for the success and progression of herself and her family. I feel as though her story should be shared. Today I'm going to give you an excerpt of my mother's vastly adventurous life and how she finally reached her American dream. My parents with no formal education have dedicated their lives to missionary work for which they have run into trouble with foreign law enforcement and put their lives on the line multiple times. My mother met my father outside of her dad's store in Bolivia and dropped her entire life to start her life with him. They started their missions in Brazil and stayed there only 6 short months before they returned to Santa Cruz in order for her to be able to give birth to her first child next to her mother. After this, they returned to Brazil where they discovered Paul, my oldest sibling, was deaf. This was also where she gave birth to my second oldest brother, Emmanuel. It was very difficult for them to live alone without a real paying job, so they returned to Santa Cruz. My mom couldn't take how bad everyone in their family and the people of the neighborhood were talking about them. Because she wasn't pursuing a professional lifestyle and because my dad wasn't a man of a lot of money, they looked down on her. My mother could no longer take the disrespect to her family name and after 2 years decided to pick it all up and take their mission to Chile. In these 2 years, they found my brother a pathologist so he could learn to speak. At the time, the use of sign language was discouraged in South America. Chile was more advanced in technology and had more available to deaf people. They found a teacher who taught him how to pronounce certain words and make certain sounds and showed him how to sign. She also taught my parents how to sign and reassured them that although it was hard, it would eventually open new doors for another crowd of people that would need Jesus. They stayed in Chile for 1 year, but under the new reign of Augusto Pinochet, they weren't aware of the new law that did not allow the public to meet together. So they were unknowingly, illegally meeting together for a year for Bible studies with the people of the neighborhood. One morning, they were awoken abruptly by the police, where they busted in and demanded to know what they were doing in that house. They separated the families that were living there and questioned everyone, even the children. The police demanded to see the guns and assumed that they were communists, but of course, as Christian pacifists, there were none in the house. All they found was Bibles. After seeing how this frightened her children and how dangerous the position that they were in there, they packed up and went back to Bolivia. They moved to La Paz, where they lived another 4 years, where my sister Rebecca was born. Here they saved many souls, got to spread the word to many of the natives there who did not even know about God. They became good friends with an important politician of Bolivia who told them about one of the best schools for the deaf in Venezuela and provided my mother and her family of 5 to go there. My brother was forced to learn to speak there, which was very frustrating for him, of course, because he could not hear himself. They stayed in Venezuela but were not granted residency, so they were forced to leave and turn to Colombia. There was a good school for the deaf there, where they allowed the integration of both speaking and sign language. My mother and her family stayed in Colombia for 4 years. They really loved the people there, and they were very receptive to the Word of God. Sadly, this was during the time of the rise of Pablo Escobar. They were praying with a lady in her apartment one day when a bomb went off in the street next to them. The windows of the entire building shattered except for the room that they were in. The government was telling the Americans to leave the country because narcos were kidnapping them for ransom. With all of this going on, they fled Colombia. With nowhere left to turn, they came to the United States. They lived in Oklahoma with my dad's mother and grew together there for a year. They moved to Miami with a missionary friend and they met in South America. But after Hurricane Andrew, they had to leave to Orlando. There was no school for the deaf there, but heard about a school in Atlanta where they decided to go to continue their mission and continue my brother's education. My mother worked as a flight attendant for a few years and then met the Salvation Army doing disaster relief in a flooded area in Albany. Both my mom and my dad have become officers of the Salvation Army and continued their lives of feeding the homeless, saving souls, giving toys and school supplies to those who could not afford it, lifting people up, and sharing the Word of God. After 40 years, she still does today what she has done from the start, with the same smile on her face and the same love in her heart. Regina, along with my dad Kelly, created many bonds and planted many seeds in people to grow in God and have watched them bloom. Yes, my dad, of course, was the other half in this entire operation, but as a woman myself, I have a different level of respect for my mom for the humble, selfless lifestyle she chose to lead. All of the qualities that I love about myself I've attributed from her. I have truly been blessed with an angel of a mother, and although we have had our rough patches, she has been the rock of my family for as long as I can remember. Today, I told you about my mother's testimony, her dedication to her religion, her family, and her general love. Her love for people inspires me every day, and I hope it inspires you as well. Everything Regina has done, from proposing my father to sharing the word of God, exudes bravery and love. I can only hope to be the beacon of light she has been for my family, for a family of my own one day.